with this data definition language, most of the time it will going to be used by the database administrator as well as by the database designer. Update is used to update the values of row, but alter is used to alter the schema of a table or a structure of a database. We have two types of DML here. One is high level or non-procedural language and another one is low level or procedural language. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. Welcome back to the session 3 of chapter 2 of unit 1, B.C.A's 4th semester database management system. In short, it is DBMS. I'm Rohini TS, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. In the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed regarding the 3 schema architecture. So there you have to concentrate on the 3 levels, right? So it will going to have an external level, conceptual level, and we have a internal level. Then you have to analyze its diagrammatic representation, how this 3 schema architecture will going to work in each level. So what each level comprises of, what do you mean by mapping, that and all you have to understand from that topic called 3 schema architecture. And also we had discussed regarding the data independence. I had taken the example of 3 floors in a building. So if I am doing some renovation in my first floor, that should not affect on the second or third floor. That is what you have to understand with respect to this data independence. If I make any changes to the schema or constraints or any set of rules and regulation, that should not affect on its above level. So that is what we have logical data independence, and also we have a physical data independence. That is what I have discussed with respect to this data independence. So in our today's session, we are going to learn with respect to the DBMS language, that is database languages. So we know that we have different user, we have different interfaces. In order to communicate that, we require some of the different programming languages. That is what we are going to discuss with respect to database languages. And also we have a DBMS interfaces. So again we have different kinds of user and how each user will going to get the screen in order to access the content of database. That is what DBMS interfaces. And also we have some more additional features or some more application program that will going to improve or that will enhances the performance of the database management system. That is what database system utilities. So these are the content that I am going to discuss in my today's session. Let me get into the session that is with respect to database languages. So as I told earlier, we have different kinds of user and different kinds of user require different kinds of privileges, right? So in order to access the content based on their roles or based on the type of a user, we are going to have several types of languages with respect to DBMS or a database here. So comprises of data definition language. So in short, DDL, and also we have data manipulation language. In short, DML. Data control language, that is DCL, and transaction control language, TCL. All these languages are used in the DBMS in order to work efficiently with respect to the particular type of user. So we'll see about the data definition language first. So what is the first type of language that we have in a database? That is data definition language. As the name indicates, we are defining something with respect to the database. So already we learned regarding the 3 schema architecture. So it comprises of 3 levels, and also we had discussed regarding the mapping, right? So when we are dealing with this data definition language, most of the time it will going to be used by the database administrator as well as by the database designer. For what purpose they are going to use it? So they are defining something. So they are going to have more privilege than any other type of user. So database administrator will be used this data definition language, that is DDL. So as I told earlier, we have 3 levels of schema architecture, that is 3 level architecture. So in each level it will going to perform its own operation. So when there must be a mapping, internal schema, and we have a concept conceptual schema. There must be a mapping in between those two layers. So within that we are going to use this DDL or a data definition language, so that it will be used by the DBA and database designer in order to specify the conceptual schema of a database. So why I'm going to use, in the conceptual schema we have an entity, attribute, as well as we have a relationship. So in order to define the conceptual schema of a database, we are going to use this DDL or a data definition language. And also we will use this DDL or a data definition language even in the internal and external schemas, that is with the physical level as well as with the external level. In all the three levels we are going to use this data definition language, and also this will going to separate the storage definition language. In short, it is SDL. So as I told, if I wanted to do the mapping, then there must be a separation between all the three levels. So for that purpose, we are going to have the storage definition language, that is SDL, and also we have, with respect to external level, we have VDL, that is view definition language, that will be used to define the internal as well as external schemas. So that is what you have to understand here. So mainly you have to understand, we have a data definition language. Mainly it will be used by the DBA, that is database administrator, as well as by the designer. And we are going to use this in the conceptual schema. There we are going to represent what is entity, what is relationship, and what is attribute and all. Along with that, this can be used in the view level or external level as well as in the internal level. So in order to separate the storage space, we have one more language within this DDL, that is for storage definition language. And also we have view definition language, VDL, that will be used in both internal as well as in the external schemas. So now we'll see what are the example which comes under this DDL language. So it comprises of create, drop, alter, truncate, comment, and we have rename. So when it comes to the create, as I told, it will going to be used by the database administrator. They are going to have utmost privileges than any other type of user. When it comes to the create, so when we wanted to create the database or its objects like indexes, table or view, any of the stored procedure functions, at that time we are going to use this create command. So command will be used in the query. So if I say create, at the time if I am mentioning create table, so that will going to understand, query compiler will going to understand that they are specifying to create a table. So for that purpose we are going to have this create. So yeah, as of now you just remember what are the commands which comes under DDL. So in coming sessions or in coming chapters we are going to learn about each command in depth. That is what, as of now you just understand what are the commands which comes under DDL. So create is used to create a database or its object. That object can be table, view or any of the stored procedure, and also triggers. So next what we have here, drop. Completely I am removing all the content from the database. So if I say it is used to delete the objects from the database, you have to understand one thing, there is a difference between delete and drop. So delete in the sense what, you just imagine I have a table and I have set of rows and columns, okay. So if I use delete, whatever the content we have, that will going to be removed, okay. But if I am going to use drop, complete database or complete table from the database management system will be removed. That is the difference between drop as well as delete. So but drop comes under DDL and also delete comes under DML. That we'll see later. So next what we have here, alter. For example, you just imagine I have a table called student. So in that I have serial number or a student number. Next I have a name and I have age. But I forgot to specify its course. So at that time what I can do, I can use this alter command in order to alter the schema of a database. So that's what the reason we are going to use this alter command. So to alter the structure of the database. And also we have update. So update is used to update the values of row, but alter is used to alter the schema of a table or a structure of a database. So that you have to remember. And also we have a truncate, that is going to use to remove all the records from a table. As I told, if I wanted to remove all these rows or a record from a table, then we are going to use this truncate. Next we have command. If I wanted to include any of the commands to the data dictionary, then we will use this command. And also we have a rename. Rename is used to rename the object which is exist in the database. So this is what you have to understand with respect to DDL or a data definition language. So next we'll see about the data manipulation language. So mainly manipulation in the sense what? It can be retrieval, updation, deletion. So it will be like that. So if I wanted to do all those manipulation, first I must have some data. So that data we already defined in the data definition language. I have created a table, I have added some of the values. So that is what in the data definition language. Now with the data, I wanted to manipulate, I wanted to do some operation, whatever the data which is present in the database. For that purpose, we are going to have this data manipulation language. In short, it is DML. So DML is a language that is used to specify the database retrievals, update, insertion, deletion, and modification of the database. So if I have a DML or a data manipulation language, what are the operations that I can perform out of that? We can retrieve. That means I can fetch some data from that, and also I can update some data. So I can insert some data to the database, and also I can delete some data from the database, as well as if I want, I can do the modification of the database. Deletion, insertion, updation, modification, as well as retrieval will going to be takes place with the help of this data manipulation language. And also we can embed or we can integrate this DML commands with the general purpose programming languages. And embedded general purpose programming language with DML commands will be what? So examples are COBOL, C, C++ or Java are the examples which comes under this category. And also we have a library of functions can also be provided to access the DBMS from a programming language. So when we are using this DML command or a data manipulation command, at that time we can have this library of function that can also be used, or that will going to provide the access to the DBMS from a programming language. So with the help of this programming language also, I can access the content of DBMS. And also we have standalone DML command. So that command can be directly operated with a DBMS. So that will be called as query languages. So you can see here the SQL commands that deals with the manipulation of the data which is present in the database belongs to DML or a data manipulation language. And also it will going to include several commands here that include insert, update, delete. Okay, so as I told, for the insertion, deletion, updation, modification, for the retrieval, we are going to use this DML command. So here you can take select command also. Select also comes under this DML command. So when it comes to the insert, mainly it is used to insert the data into the table. As I told, we have a table that comprises of columns as well as row. So if I wanted to add some content to the row, then I have to use this insert command, insert into. So we are going to discuss every command in detail in my coming session. So now here we have a update that is used to modify or to update the existing data within the table. Then we have delete. So drops comes under DDL and delete comes under DML. So that it is used to delete the records from a database table. So these are the commands which comes under this data manipulation language. So next what we have here, types of DML. So it includes high level or non-procedural language. So we have two types of DML here. One is high level or non-procedural language and another one is low level or procedural language. So what this high level or a non-procedural language comprises of, we'll see now. So for example, the SQL relation language. So SQL is an example for this high-level programming language, and also are set-oriented and specify what data to retrieve rather than how to retrieve it. So this mainly specify on what? It just showing a destination instead of that how to reach that path. That is what we can take as an example here. It is a set-oriented programming language that will specify what data needs to be retrieved instead of how to retrieve it. Okay, and also called declarative language. We can also call this high level or a non-procedural language as a declarative language. So we'll see about this low level or a procedural language. So This will going to specify several set of data which needs to be retrieved. But when it comes to the procedural or a low level language, this will going to allow us to retrieve a single record at a time. So it will allow us to use or to retrieve one record at a time, and also construct such as looping or needed to retrieve multiple records along with a positioning pointer. For example, I have 10 records. So at a time I can retrieve only one record. If I wanted to retrieve further records, remaining 9 other records, at the time I have to use looping. So then that looping will going to help me out in order to reach the further records. That is with respect to what? Low level or procedural language. This is what you have to remember when it comes to the DML language. So next we have a data control language. In short, it will be considered as what? DCL. So in this DCL, it will going to have two commands. One is grant and another one is revoke. It's like blocking and unblocking. That means if it is blocked, so no other things can be accessed. So if it is unblocked or if it is normal, we can access some data out of that. In the same way, here also we have a grant and we have a revoke. So grant in the sense I'm giving some permission to the user in order to access the content. So revoke in the sense whatever the permission that I have given, I'm taking it back. That is what grant and review. So you can see here which mainly deal with the rights, permission and other controls of the database system. So when we are mainly concerned regarding the confidentiality or when we are concerning with the security of the content of a database, at the time some privileges needs to be given in the programming languages. So that is what we are going to in the data control language. We are controlling the accessing of the data by using grant and revoke command. So if it is a grant, then it will give the users access privileges to the database. Then if they have provided or DB or a database administrator has say okay for grant, at the time I can have the access privileges to the database. When it is revoked, at that time whatever the permission or rights that has been given to the user of a database, everything will going to be taken back. That is what? Revoke. So withdraw the user's access privileges which is given by using the grant commands. From the grant command, they are going to give some rights or they are going to give some permission and other control or constraints can be given to the user. But when they are using revoke, at the time they are just taking all the granted permission back from the user. That you have to remember. So next we have a transaction control language. In short, it will be considered as what? TCL, transaction control language. So as we all know, transaction in the sense what? Any kind of operation, whether I am retrieving, I am inserting, I am deleting, I am updating, all those will be considered as what? One transaction. So when I'm having a control over that transaction, that kind of programming language will be considered as what? Transaction control language. So TCL commands deal with the transaction within the database. So then what are the commands which comes under this TCL? We'll see now. One is commit, roll back, and also we have a save point, and also we have a set transaction. So when it comes to the commit, it's like a control S in the Word document. So why we are going to use control S? In order to save the content, whatever that we have typed or that we have used and all, right? So in the same way, if I wanted to save the content or if I wanted to save the transaction of a database, then I have to use a keyword called commit. So this commits a transaction. It's like a control S. Then roll back. It's like a undo. So control U. So roll back the transaction in case of any errors occurs. I just wanted to go back to the previous stage of a transaction. At the time, I have to use this roll back. Next, what we have here? Save point. Set the save point within a transaction. For example, so we have this many transaction. When it comes to this point, at the time, I wanted to save all these previous transaction. That is what? Save point. Set the save point within the transaction. Next, we have set transaction. It specifies the characteristics for the transaction, how transaction must be, what kind of transaction we are dealing with, and how much time it has to take, in which point it has to save. That is what we have in this set transaction command. So that these are the things which comes under TCL or a transaction control language. So these are the types of programming languages that we have in a database. We'll see about the next point, that too with respect to DBMS interface. So we have many kind of user. We have database administrator, we have database designer, analyst, programmer, and also we have an end user. In the end user, we have a separate types of end users also. We have parametric, and also we have naive users, we have casual end users, and also we have standalone user, right? So those are the types of user we have, and each user will going to have their own privileges. So the way they are just going to talk to a database will be differ from one user to another user. So you just take the example of your Google Classroom. So being a administrator of that Google Classroom, my view or my interface to that application will be different than the participants that I am going to add. So if I am a participant of that particular classroom, at that time for me, the view of that classroom or a Google Classroom will be different than the administrator. So here, every user will going to have their own interfaces in order to access the content of a database. So here also we have several types of interfaces. So it includes standalone query language interface. So I will give some query language. So by making use of this SQL queries, I'm just going to talk to a database. And also we have a programmer interface for embedding DML in the programming language. Already we have learned regarding this SQL relational language. So with the help of this, I'm going to embed some of the DML commands to the programming language. Then also I can interact with the database. And also we have a user-friendly interfaces. So in the user-friendly interfaces, it can be menu-based or form-based, graphics-based, or even speech-based. That can be anything. So when it comes to the menu-based, at the time we are going to have a set of options. So based on that we have to select, and also we have a form based. So if you consider any form that consists of radio buttons, and also we have a checkbox, text field, and also we have a submit or reset. So all those comes under this form based. And also we have a graphic based, like it's like a pointer. I'm just going to click like that. Okay. So now we'll see about this user-friendly DBMS interfaces. So as I told, this user-friendly in the sense, as the name indicates, if I wanted to access the content of a database, or if I wanted to talk to a database, at the time it must be user-friendly. It should not be tedious task. It should not be some like rocket science. So it has to be user-friendly. Whatever I'm seeing on the screen should be easy to understand. That is what a user-friendly interface is all about. So in this, we have a menu based. So this is somehow popular because as I told earlier, if it is a menu based, at that time, we are going to have a several set of options. So within that drop down menu, so you have already aware of this drop down menu, right? So for example, you are in some of the forms you wanted to apply for something. At that time, they are going to give you the accessing, or they are going to give you the set of options in order to access the district or in order to access the state. At the time, you are going to have set of options. So out of that option, you can click anyone. That is what menu. They will give some set of features or option. Based on that, you have to click or you have to select anyone out of that. So this is morely popular for the browsing on the web. So based on the menu or based on the content, we are going to access that. And also we have a form based. Already we know regarding the forms that comprises of text field, radio button, checkbox, and also we have a reset, submit button, cancel button. So in this form based, this mainly used for the Navy user. For the regular use, we are going to use this. So when it comes to the form based, as I told, all the form elements will be there. So out of that, we are going to interact or we are going to communicate with a database. And also we have a graphics based. So in short, it will be considered as what? GIR, graphical user interface. So in this also, it will be mainly focuses on the pointing devices like mouse. We are going to use a mouse in order to click some options. So I can double click on that. I can open it, I can close it. That everything option like all the transaction or all the kind of operation what I wanted to talk to a database will going to be worked based on the pointing devices. We are going to point and we are going to click, drag and drop. So all these operations which comes under this graphic based user interface. And also we have a natural language. So as the name indicates, natural language in the sense what? It will be moreover based on the English or Spanish. So most of the time we are going to use this English. So when it comes to the natural language, at the time our request will be written in the English language. Then compiler or a query compiler will going to analyze that. Then it will going to talk to a database. Then it will understand what we are asking, like what are the query that I wanted to process. So after that, whatever the result in that we are going to get, that resultant will be reached back to the user in the English language again. That is what natural language. So here we have several predefined set of English words or Spanish words. So based on that data dictionary, whatever we have in that content, based on that this natural language will be used in order to talk to our database. And also we have several combination of the above, like I can consider what menu based, form based together, and for that two forms I can give GUI, like everything can be drag and drop, just click and double click on that. So that kind of operations can also be possible here. And also we have some more DBMS interfaces. Mainly it includes what? Speech as input and output. Can you give me an example for the speech as an input and output? I will tell you regarding that. We have a Siri, right? So we have Siri and Alexa. So in order to talk to that, my input will be in the terms of voice, and even it can be in the terms of text or numbers. Again, the output will be in the terms of what? Speech itself. That is what? Speech as input and output. Then also it is possible to talk to our database management system. And also we can consider this word. So we have several set of predefined words. So that words can be understood by the DBMS. Then it understands that. Again it compiles and it sends the resultant back to the user as a speech here. So you can take the example of telephone directory or plane arrival and its departure time. Everything will going to be in the terms of what? Speech as an input as well as output. They are just going to load it. So based on that, it will just going to talk, or it will just going to do the speech. And also we have a web browser as an interface. So I can also use web browser. So in that I am going to send my request, that will reach to the server. Again it will come back to the client as a resultant. So in the web browser it can be like text based or a image based, or it can be even voice based. And also we have a parametric interfaces. You can take the example of bank teller using the function keys. When it comes to the bank teller, here also it will just going to have several set of predefined wordings. So that will going to be used when we are going to use this parametric interfaces based on certain parameter. For example, so it will just going to have a set of parameter which needs to be used repeatedly. So you can take the example of ATM machine. So that set of operations will going to be used repeatedly in a daily manner. If I consider even weekly basis, all those operations or a set of instruction which will going to be repeatedly used, then that kind of interface will be considered as what? Parametric interface. And also we have some interfaces with respect to DBA. So database administrator, as I told earlier, they are going to have the utmost privilege. So they are going to use, or they are going to have some specific interfaces for them. So they can create user accounts granting the authorization. They can provide a genuine user. They can create their accounts as well as setting system parameter. Like these are the set of rules and regulations that you must follow if you wanted to talk to a database. And also changing the schemas or accessing path. So as I told, we have 3 levels. In order to have a mapping, then we have to know its path. Like how can I reach to the above level? That is what access path here. So all these will going to be specified by the database administrator. For that also we have an interface. So when we have interface, each user can get the benefit out of the database. They can fetch the content, they can update the content of a database. All those operation is possible when we have a separate interface for each kind of user. I hope you understood regarding this DBMS interfaces. And all these DBMS language as well as the interfaces are very, very important question, either for 7 marks or for 8 marks. Okay. So these concepts are important with respect to your examination. And also we have some database system utilities. First, you have to understand what do you mean by utility. It is like a set of applications, or it is like a set of software. So we are using this kind of software in order to improve the efficiency of a database management system. So in order to have a smooth running of the database, we are going to have this utilities. So what this utilities comprises in the database system, so that is also going to perform or it will follow certain functions. So mainly it includes loading of a data which is stored in the files into a database. That includes the conversion tools. So what is the first operation? Loading of data. So loading of data which will going to be stored in the files. So we have a set of files, we have a records. So every records are a file comprises of certain data. So when I wanted to access the content from a database, that needs to be loaded to the database. That is operation will going to be performed by the utility called loading of data. So then I have a one more called backing up. So if something goes wrong, whether I'm going to get the same data back or not. That is what, if we have a backing up, we are going to have a file in more number of copies. So if something goes wrong with this server, another server will going to help me out in order to get it back. That is what backing up option. So backing up in the sense what? The database periodically on tape. Whatever the data and information we have with respect to this file and record, everything will going to be dumped to this tape. So this tape is like a storage media that will going to include everything. So if something goes wrong with some system, I can get the same data or a file, I can retrieve it back. That is with the help of this backing up utility. And also we have a reorganization of a database file structure. So if I wanted to reorder it, if I wanted to rearrange it, for example, I wanted to delete this content, I wanted to add some more file to my database. At that time, this reorganization of a database utility will going to help us. And also report generation utility. So based on certain constraint or based on certain parameter, I wanted to generate some report as a resultant. At that time, we can use this report generation utility. And also we have performance monitoring utilities. As I told, we are going to have different programming languages, different database programming languages, and we are going to write different kinds of query in order to access the content of a database. So out of that, I have to get to know which is the least time taking query. Like I have to find out optimized query in order to improve its performance. Like what time it will going to take in order to retrieve the content by making use of this query. So if I get to know which query is optimized or which query is more efficient, then we can specify or we can get to know the performance of particular query. So by that also we can enhance the efficiency of a database, so that we have this performance monitoring utilities. And also we have some more utilities with respect to sorting, like arrangements of a file or a record or any of the content in a database, either in the ascending or descending order. And also we have a user monitoring, like what user is using, what kind of operation they are performing, are they working based on the constraint, are they following the schema. In order to get to know that, we also have this user monitoring, like whether they are using the resources properly or not, whether they are misusing the resources, are they are authorized or unauthorized user. Based on that, we are going to monitor the user activity. And also we have a data compression. If I wanted to send from one system to another system, at the time the size needs to be reduced somehow. So that we are going to have this data compression. All these facilities will going to be provided to the database when we have these kind of beautiful utilities. We'll see about the next point with respect to other tools. We can also have some other tools with respect to the database that include data dictionary or a repository. So data dictionary is also called as repository, and it is also called as a metadata. So why? Because it is a data about another data, right? So why we are going to use this data dictionary? Mainly it is used to store the schema description, like what kind of table we are using, what kind of data I can include, how many columns it has, like what are the properties or what are the attributes it includes, and how many rows or records we have. All the description of that database can be defined or can be used in this data dictionary. So that used to store the schema description and other information. It is not only storing about the information regarding regarding schema description, and also it includes the information with respect to designing decision and application program description, and also user information, who are all my users, and also usage standards, etc. So these kind of information will going to be stored in the data dictionary or in the repository or in the metadata. And also we have two kinds of data dictionary. One is active data dictionary and another one is passive data dictionary. When it is active data dictionary, it will be used or accessed by the DBMS software as well as by the DBA or a database administrator or by the user. So when it comes to the passive data dictionary, it is accessed by the user or a DBA only. It can't be accessed by the DBMS software. That is the difference between active and passive type of data dictionary here. So this is regarding data dictionary or repository, and also here we have some application development environment and case. So case is nothing but what? Computer aided software engineering. So for this also we have several tools that includes Power Builder, that is Sybase, and JBuilder, Borland, and also we have a JDeveloper 10G, that is Oracle. So these are the example which comes under the application development environment as well as for the case. I hope you all understood all these things. In my coming session, I will be discussing regarding what you mean by an entity and what you mean by entity type, what is entity set, and also we'll see about the attributes along with the keys. This will be the content of my next session. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.